Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the June 22nd, 2020 board meeting to order. And before we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to remind folks that are participating remotely, members of the public, if you could comment if you'd like to speak when we get to that part of the agenda. So just go online and make a comment in the comment section, and then we'll call on you and allow you to participate with your microphone one by one. Oh, raise your hand is the proper terminology on the Zoom webinar there. So raise your hand, and when we get to the public comment portion of the agenda, then we will call you out by name, allow you to use the microphone to be able to make your comment or ask your question. So with that in mind, then I'd ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now, if the clerk would call the roll, please.
Trustee Saturn.
Present.
Trustee Narodowski.
Present.
Trustee Ingraffia.
Present.
Trustee Keenley.
Present.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Present. Okay, item C on the agenda, public comment. Is there any public comment? There's no one here. Any public comment online? If you could raise your hand so that we could call on you. Okay, just, I'll give a few more seconds, just in case anybody's having some difficulty. Anything? Okay, then we'll move on. No public comment. We'll move on to item D, the consent agenda. You've had an opportunity to review the items on the consent agenda. Would any board members like any items from the consent agenda removed? Okay.
No, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
When you look through the general assistant, the grants and the numbers, I'm just surprised we haven't had more people coming in for grants and emergency assistance, considering everything that's going on with a lot of people losing their jobs.
So, yeah, so it's a great question. So one of the things that prevents somebody from collecting general assistance is like their unemployment insurance. So if they get unemployment, then they would no longer qualify for general assistance. So a lot of the folks that were employed that might come to us for help, they might need help with the food pantry and other things, or if we're able to refer to other agencies to help with some things. But when it comes typically to emergency assistance and general assistance, we've talked to a lot of folks, but once they qualify and they're able to collect their unemployment, then they're no longer be qualified for emergency assistance and general assistance.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So but we have seen a significant uptick, almost double our typical numbers, our standard numbers before the pandemic. Our numbers in the food pantry have increased, almost doubled. But great question. Let's see here. Any other questions or comments about the consent agenda? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Saturn. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Trustee Narodowski. Any further comments? All right. Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn.
Aye.
Trustee Narodowski.
Aye.
Trustee Ingraffia.
Aye.
Trustee Keenley.
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Aye. Hey, motion carries. Item E on the agenda, you have two sets of minutes, one from the May 18th regular board meeting and then the May 30th special board meeting. Any comments or questions, proposed changes to those minutes?
No.
Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve both sets of minutes as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Keenley,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Ingraffia. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A motion carries. There are no presentations. Item G, reports from the elected officials. Assessor's office, Connie.
Well, we had quite an eventful Friday. At approximately 3:30 in the afternoon, we were informed that we were not going to be open for assessment appeals today. This was not something that should have surprised us because we are at the whim of the Cook County Assessor. Very frequently in our budget talks, there's been an argument that we know when we're going to be open. This is an absolutely definitive argument that we never know when we're going to be open, so the argument becomes specious. We are now told that we will open next Monday. This meant that newsletter articles had to be edited. It also meant that social media, website, we had at 4:15 scheduled over 9,000 emails and robocalls to inform our taxpayers that we would be open. That, of course, has been scrubbed, and we will wait until Friday to see if, in fact, we will be open next Monday. If, in fact, we open next Monday, the appeal period will then go until August 4th.
Is that it, Connie?
That's it.
Okay, any questions for Connie? Okay, thank you, Connie. Clerk's report, George?
No report. I just have submitted the written report, which reflects the current FOIA requests.
Any questions for George? Okay, Highway Commissioner report, Art?
I submitted my written report. I really don't have anything else to add.
Okay. It's not listed on here, but I'll just update a couple of quick things. We opened back up to the public today. Our guidelines are in place, primarily that members of the public, when they come into the building, we have hand sanitizer available. We ask everyone to use the hand sanitizer, come in with the masks, use them when social distancing can't be maintained. The most likely places members of the public will interact with members of the staff at the reception desk. We have shields, plastic shields put up to minimize that kind of contact or any transference of any germs. In addition, the adult and family counseling, as folks have really enjoyed or taken to the teletherapy, they're continuing to do that. We're continuing to offer in-person and teletherapy throughout the summer at no charge, and we'll revisit that after Labor Day. The caseworkers and general assistants, we have 2 flex offices set up with cameras, so that individuals that don't want to apply for resources, primarily emergency assistance and general assistance and other programs, if they don't want to do that remotely and want to come into the office, those individuals can sit in flex offices in front of a monitor with a camera, and they can speak remotely to caseworkers down the hall. So we're doing everything we can to minimize contact so that members of the public feel safe, the staff feels safe, and taking all the proper precautions. But still, throughout this process, we've continued to deliver service. We're continuing to do that now and taking the proper precautions as folks come into the building. We're hoping to have an open house soon. A lot will depend on the timeline of the newsletter, when we can get that information out to the public, but also, obviously, we're looking at what's going to be happening with Phase 4 and potentially Phase 5 to make sure that we're making the right decisions as far as encouraging large numbers of individuals to visit the township at the same time. So we'll keep you posted on that, but we're working with our contacts in Springfield to understand what's going on, and also in constant contact with our attorney just to make sure we're following all guidelines we need to follow. All right, any questions for me? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the elected official reports as presented?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Keenly,
Second it.
seconded by trustee Nuredowski. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, there's no correspondence. There is no old business under item J. We have several things to discuss. The first item is we do this every year, the transfer of appropriations. So just to quickly go through that, item one under item J1, the transfer of appropriation for general assistance. We are transferring from the line item of legal and professional services in the amount of $3,250 to utilities. Transferring from dues and subscriptions, $1,200 to training and printing and publishing. Transferring from GA rent, $24,000 to staff salaries. And then employee insurance, transferring $6,900 from that line item to employer FICA, equipment, and employer IMRF. All right. Any questions about these transfers of appropriations?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve these transfers of appropriations?
So moved.
Moved by trustee
Second.
Saturn, seconded by trustee Ingraffia. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn,
Aye.
trustee Nuredowski,
Aye.
trustee Ingraffia,
Aye.
trustee Keenly,
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right. Item J2, proposed agency grant policy. I think it was maybe a week or two before the last meeting. George had put some information together about an agency grant policy based on previous discussions from the board. One thing I did, I didn't really have necessarily an issue with a portion of the language, but I wanted to just check with our attorney when it comes to the language, specifically in the first paragraph of what you have in your board packet that says any nonprofit social service agency that has been in existence for at least 1 year that provides services within the boundaries of Elk Grove Township and whose services address the social service needs of Elk Grove Township residents may apply for township funding. The only reason, what I wanted to clarify with the attorney is because we are using public funds, whether or not we can preemptively identify who can apply, right? And so I thought I didn't want us to be discriminatory to an agency that might want to apply but sees that description and doesn't, or feels that they're being left out of potentially receiving a grant because they might not meet this description. So that was my one question. The attorney says, while that's something to consider, he's not really concerned about that. If this is what our standard operating procedure is, if the board typically looks to nonprofit social service agencies that provide these types of services, and that is how we've typically operated, the attorney doesn't really see a problem with this description. So with that, other than that, with just a short paragraph about the policy itself, and then we broke out the procedures. All of these really in place now. We've been operating this way. We're just formalizing procedures for actually administering the grants. So with that, are there any questions about this agency grant policy and the procedures that follow?
Let me just say that this won't resolve every issue we probably run up against, but it should provide the majority of situations that arise. It should eliminate most misunderstandings and should provide us with a clear understanding of what we're putting out and what we're saying. And we have had some experiences in the past, and I believe that's why why the request was to put together a formal policy.
Will this be a part of the grant application? Will it go out with the grant applications?
So all of this information is already conveyed. All these procedures are already followed. If this answers your question, we can include this copy, the copy
Well,
of
they're-
this policy in when we do notify the agencies, if that's what you're asking.
Well, these things are in place, but it's all verbally. Is that what you're telling me? It's given to the agencies verbally.
No, not everything, because in the grant applications, you have submission deadlines for not only the grant, submission deadlines for submitting invoicing.
Could we give this to them when we give them the package, or is
Yeah.
that redundant, you're saying?
Well, part of it is redundant. Some of these things can be clarified, and if it makes sense, we can clarify some of these things up front in the grant application. I don't see a problem with that, or provide a copy like this. What we'll do is we'll make sure all this information in one form or another, whether it's this grant policy and procedures, or, insert it directly into the language of the grant application.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any additional questions, comments, concerns? Okay, what would the board like to do?
A motion?
Is there any,
I'll make a motion to approve it.
okay, a motion's been made to approve the agency grant policy and procedures. It was moved by trustee Saturn. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by trustee Nuredowski. Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn?
Aye.
Trustee Nuredowski?
Aye.
Trustee Ingraffia?
Aye.
Trustee Keenly?
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so item J3, funded agency request by Shelter. I wanted to kind of fill everybody in. This is one of the memos I had sent out to the board last week. Just kind of wanted to fill you in on what was going on, right? We were all a little surprised, I think, that a couple of the standard applicants hadn't applied. Shelter Inc. was one of them. As it turned out, we received an invoice. We were kind of surprised at the invoice. Paul went back and said, look, you weren't granted any funds. We did not receive an application from you. We cannot grant any funds, we cannot provide any grant funding unless you've applied and that deadline had passed. So they sent back an email, got lost somewhere, from February 3rd, that they did indeed apply. Not sure what happened, but everything else is laid out, right? There was no follow-up until we received the invoice. So other than that, you have the email from Karina Santa Maria requesting the board, this was sent on June 15th, requesting that the board provide Shelter with a grant for the current fiscal year. Last year, you also have the grant application. Last year's grant amount was $60,000. The agency is asking for, $70,000. So $10,000 more than last year.
They're asking for 70 or 80?
70.
70.
So the last 2 years, 60,000, and it might have been 60,000 before that, but the last 2 years, 60,000, and then 70,000 this year.
What did we do with the others? We kept it the same?
Yep. So
So
I will,
this agency has made requests before.
Yes.
the Shelter Inc. is, well, I mean, they've been one of our standard applicants for an extended period of time. I'd have to go back and look at how long, but yeah, they're one of our standards, longtime grant applicants.
And as standard operating procedure, Paul or the administrator would notify them either by phone or via email that the grant had been received?
So, they're yeah, I mean, if it's sent
Is that
electron.
standard operating
Yes,
procedure?
yes.
Okay.
As soon as he receives the grant application, they are notified. He confirms, that we've received the grant application, correct.
Maybe in the future, we need to just go through our list of people we've had on there a long time and, kind of a week ahead say, hey, we haven't received the grant. I know we don't have to do that, but, they do kind of count on our grant money for the programs they've already planned.
Yeah, I don't prefer doing that. I think that the onus, like I said in my memo, the onus should be on them to follow up. I have no problem putting that in the grant application, or when we notify them that the grant applications are available, to tell them, if you do not receive a confirmation from us, it has not been received. So I don't
Now
have
we're
a
in a mess that they sent this email, but somehow Paul didn't get it.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but
Well,
things
I see
happen.
what you're saying too. If we let them know,
Right.
they'll be notified when we have their application, then
Right.
they need to pay attention if they don't get a
Right.
notification.
Right,
Oh.
and the other thing is, I have nothing against Shelter Inc. I think they do a wonderful job, a good organization. It was just a bit presumptuous, right? No follow-up after and Karina does explain that, but at the same time, give us a call, ask us about our budget meetings, when are we making decisions, when are we being notified? It was a little presumptuous just to send an invoice, assuming that everything went to plan, we approved their funding, they didn't even ask if we approved funding at a $60,000 level or $70,000 level, they just presumed. I'm not saying that we deny the funding based on that, but I'm happy to add that language to the notification. I just don't think our staff should be chasing folks down, but I'm happy to clarify, put in bold saying, you will be notified by our staff. You will receive a confirmation from our staff when your application is received. Please follow up if you don't hear from us to ensure that the application, we have received the application. That language, fine. I don't mind clarifying it, just like we've clarified some things in the grant application policy.
No, that sounds good. So now what do we do about them this year?
That's the $60,000 to $70,000 question, I guess. Thoughts? I'm happy to share my thoughts.
As you,
If nobody else, as usual, yeah.
almost had a surprise.
I would like to give it to them, and then it's not gonna happen again because we're gonna have the policy.
That's what we said the last time, and all of these things were in place. And I'm sorry, that last sentence, I therefore didn't reach out to ask about our funding from Elk Grove, as I believed it was delayed due to COVID. She didn't get anything that said it was approved, but she sends us a bill. I'm sorry, that's a little bit presumptuous on their part. If you didn't get something back from us, that should have sent up a red flag. So we're doing it again. We're giving in to somebody that should have followed through with it. And personally, I just don't see us doing this.
I think beyond what I said in my memo, and beyond that, I agree with Trustee Ingraffia. As much as the good work that they do, we need to start, sticking to what we've said in the past, and I really do think the onus is on organizations to not only follow up, but to, before we get an invoice, at least ask. I know this has been a crazy time, but a call could have went out, an email, a meeting could have been asked for, to say, look, when are you meeting? Has this been delayed? Why not call us and ask if our budget meetings have been delayed? It's all been on, we're on YouTube. We publish our meetings. We've met every month. We haven't skipped. Our meetings have gone off as planned. We're very public about that. We're very transparent. There should have been no questions about whether or not we were meeting and what we were discussing.
Even with the coronavirus, and the office was closed to people coming in, the office was still open. Phone calls were being answered, emails were being answered. Is that correct?
Yes, staff was in every day. We rotated staff for a while, but every day there was staff on site in every department, answering questions, answering emails, responding. Paul was in every day, and he's the one that collects all of this information. So there was no time in which services were not being provided or we were unable to be contacted. We were here every day.
Did Erica get the email? Because I'm looking at this row of emails.
So the only one on February 3rd, the only individual that it was sent to was Paul.
Okay, yeah, and then June 10th, the other one was sent.
Right.
Okay. How do the other trustees feel?
Personally, I agree with Bob. And mainly because I think besides that and besides the, not reaching out later, it would seem that if this was not to say that, to diminish the effect that COVID had on everything, it didn't seem to affect any of the other grant applicators. They didn't have any problem getting their things in time and processed and all that stuff and do whatever was necessary. So I think if we want to stick to our guns here, I think it'd be a good idea to not grant it.
So what happened to the email?
I don't remember if I referenced it in my email. We just don't know. We've talked to James. There's no way. We asked, is there a way to find out if it would bounce back? If there was something happening on our end. It wasn't during our move, so we were concerned. Well, was it a time where we were moving? No, we were still at the 2400 building. We just don't know. As on occasion with email, these things happen. Trust me, we spent between James and Paul and I. We tried everything we could think of to try to identify what could have happened to that email. It just wasn't. We just didn't receive it.
Okay. Well, I think a majority don't want to grant it, so we might as well move on. Do we have to do any kind of vote?
No, I mean, if nobody calls for a motion to approve it, no, it just dies. So, is there any action any board member would like to take? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to item J4. This is the 2019-2020 tentative budget for town fund. Another memo of mine was sent outlining some of the larger items. As I said, these were items that were already reviewed and approved and discussed at previous board meetings. Many of these are either dealing with capital improvements that we weren't necessarily expecting to take care of in the previous budget year, like the new boiler, the air handler, the basement demo in the new building, things like that. But we did have to take care of those things because problems presented themselves, et cetera. So I laid out the larger ones totaling, where was it? don't see this number on my memo. It was roughly in the 850 some odd thousand range of the $950,000, $954,000 in changes to the 2019-2020 budget. I will run through all of them, and then we have the document that the actual tentative budget that shows these changes. Just to let you know, we run through the same process even after the budget year is over. We have to correct these for year-end purposes and for audit purposes. So this becomes the tentative budget if it's approved. And then next month, then we'd have the final budget. Let's see here. So in utilities, there was a change from $20,000 to $32,005. And explain that we were paying utilities on 2 buildings for a period of time. The building and janitorial maintenance went from $35,000 to $497,000. Again, that's the big items where talk about the basement demo, the plumbing modifications, like going from the 2 water lines to the building to 1, fire alarm additions that were added on from the fire marshal after we had an approved plan and that was completed, sprinkler issues that were added on at the end that were not called for, the boiler issue, air handler, other security monitoring systems that were added. Passport services, just a modified addition there of 500 from 2,000 to 2,550. IT copier expenses from 7,500 to 8,100. Building rental, again, renting 2,400 and the youth services temporary space for longer than we anticipated. That number went from 25,000 to 98,850. Rental, that's not on youth services.
That may be equipment.
Equipment rental? Okay, I think that, okay. So equipment rental went from 2,500 to 5,500. Legal, dealing with a former employee issue that is still ongoing. Bid notices and the Parkway loan that proved to be quite complex, problematic after we started going through the process. That went from 50,000 to 75,500. Professional services, 32,000 to 133,100. Security that we had to hire for a period of time. And then that architect draw that didn't happen in the previous year as we anticipated. So there were some additions to the architect, and then the draw came later than we anticipated. Let me see here. Equipment additions like furniture, walk-in cooler, some of the media pieces for our meeting room, TVs, new phones, 7,500 to 203,000. The food pantry truck from 20,000 to 24,900. Employee insurance went up slightly from 111,000 to 123,005. And then FICA slightly from 35,000 to 38,100. Employer IMRF from 30,000 to 31,350. Unemployment compensation from 4,000 to 5,000. Assessor utilities from 1,500 to 2,800. Assessor printing and publishing, 1,500 to 1,650. Assessor professional services, 3,000 to 3,400. Assessor office supplies, 2,000 to 2,250. Assessor staff salaries from 138,000 to 148,100. Assessor employee insurance, 18,000 to 21,300. Assessor FICA, 11,000 to 11,300. Assessor IMRF from 9,000 to 9,400. Senior bus maintenance went from 25,000 to 35,800. We've just had some additional major expenses on bus 24. Youth Services Temporary Facility, we ended up renting longer, so that went from $7,500 to $27,600. Youth Services Program expenses went up slightly from $7,000 to $7,500. Challenge staff salaries from $25,000 to $26,500. Employee insurance from $47,000 to $54,600. So those are all the items in the town fund that were changed. Typically, some of these minor ones would have been done in a transfer of appropriations, but since we needed to re-budget anyway, instead of doing a two-step process, just decided to include all those changes in the re-budgeting process.
There's also the shelter to take out, because we didn't decide that till tonight, to remove the shelter grant from the social services list.
This is for 2019, 2020.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep. Did we have, so they received the grant last year, correct. Okay, any questions about these changes? Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 tentative budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year for town fund? I will make that. Go ahead. Bob, okay, moved by trustee Ingraffia. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Saturn. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn,
Aye.
trustee Narodowski,
Aye.
trustee Ingraffia,
Aye.
trustee Keenly,
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Item J5, the 2019-2020 tentative budget for the road district. The substantial, the change there was for, let me see here. There was, I'll run through all these, the large ones, I'll highlight the larger ones. Just get to it here. Again, you have a budget document, the tentative budget with these changes reflected. Utilities went from $7,000 to $19,900. Again, the two buildings. Accounting services went from $500 to $950. Personal property replacement tax, $31,000 to $37,650. Employee insurance, $14,000 to $17,550. Employer IMRF went from $5,500 to $5,600. Road maintenance, this is the largest one, went from $655,000 to $847,300. A couple of things there, just part of the project, the cost of some of that large project that we completed carried over from the 2018-2019 into the 2019-2020 fiscal year, plus there were some overruns on the project too. So there was a change of $192,300. And then the last one was engineering, which went from $25,000 to $42,500.
That was for road maintenance, right?
Correct. But they happy to report that we've gotten everything taken care of, and that road project is tied up, correct, Art? And
Basically just odds and ends.
just odds and ends, yeah. So the road district, the roads in the district are in great shape. Okay, any questions about those changes? All right, can I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 tentative budget for the road district as amended?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Keenly. Is there a second? Seconded by trustee Saturn. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn,
Aye.
trustee Narodowski.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Trustee Keenly,
Aye.
trustee Ingraffia,
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, both of those, item J4 and item J5 will be placed on the July meeting agenda as to lay on the table for 30 days to be reviewed, and then we can pass the final amended budgets in July. Okay, item J6, resolution number 2020-05 RD, proposal to place question on the November 2020 general election ballot regarding abolishing the Elk Grove Township Road District. I laid out in my memo that I had talked to Art about this. This has been, from time to time, I've had discussion, I believe others have had discussions within the township about when it would be appropriate, if it would be appropriate, to go ahead and abolish the highway department in its current state. That doesn't mean that the roads are no longer being taken care of. It just changes the oversight, the administration of the road maintenance. If this were to pass, the township board, as I laid out in my memo, that's not where it ends. It goes on to the general election ballot to be voted on by the electors in Elk Grove Township to approve or disapprove the measure. Again, if it's not approved, then everything continues as normal. If it is approved, then what happens is the administration moves under the township, in which the supervisor administers the operation of the road district with oversight from the township board. And then, as I said, we could have a township part-time employee, whoever that might be, administer just to review that work is being done, identify any problems, report back to the board any issues that need to be addressed. But that the township board at the township road district's current mileage, the township would continue to receive that levy, similar to Wheeling Township.
So if we go under a certain number of miles, then we get no money from them. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that number is 4 miles, but I'm still waiting for confirmation on that.
So we'd still have to maintain those 3 or whatever half miles we have, right, with no money?
Well, right now, yeah, if we drop below that, yeah, you would, let's presume it's 4 miles. So yeah, if you dropped below the 4 miles and you lost the levy, then yes, you would do it with town fund dollars.
We'd have to do that regardless of whether this passed.
Yeah.
Say that again?
We'd have to do that regardless whether or not this passed, the resolution.
You have to use township money if it's
So,
below 4.
so here's the question. So if you drop below mileage anyway, not only do you lose the levy, the highway department goes away. So it's an automatic trigger. But what state statute allows now is for you can abolish the highway department. You'd still manage it, but if you're above that mileage, you still collect the levy. Now, if we didn't take these measures and the road district stayed in place and we fell below that 4 miles, then state statute again triggers that the highway department is abolished anyway and the levy goes away. And the township and the town fund and the township board oversee the operations for the road district.
What happens to the elected position of highway commissioner?
It goes away?
If the resolution passes, it goes away.
That's correct.
And if we go under 4.
And if we go under 4, right.
Right, okay. The money that was lent to the highway department, this won't affect it being refunded to,
No, so we essentially, we have a lien.
I'm sorry.
I understand. We have the town, the town fund, the township, as a taxing body, the township has a lien on the road district essentially. So we are being paid not only the principal, but the interest, as we laid out in the agreement. So
You'd
let's
continue.
say let's say the levy went away, the road district went away, we would have, being the lender to the road district and having that lien on the road district, whatever funds would be left, the township would acquire those funds.
So what if basically saying is that under the current scenario, if the department is shifted under the township, we will continue to pay that off through the levy. If for some reason the levy was lost, then the funds would have to come from what remains in the road district budget or not get paid.
That's correct.
Okay.
So who would do the plowing and things like that?
Outsource.
So we could do two things. You could have a part-time employee that does things on an as-needed basis, or you could contract out.
So would we contract out to like a village or to an independent company?
So we could do village, we could do township, we could do independent company. And I mean, it would be, all of those things would be possible.
My only concern with that is I wouldn't want us to be at the end of the list, like because it's not the township doing it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Perfectly understandable. We would address that in any kind of contract negotiations. Any kind of contracts where we contract out for service in a case where the management of the road district comes under the township board. The township board would be in charge of reviewing those contracts and ensuring those concerns are dealt with.
For cost savings, the primary cost savings for here would be also including the elimination of some of the big trucks, right?
I anticipate that. The staff, the full-time staff is a significant annual cost that would be eliminated. Any equipment, what equipment or how we would use that equipment would go based on how the township board would like to proceed, whether using part-time staff, outsourcing, right? If we went to more outsourcing, I would assume we would sell off more equipment. If we had a part-time person, that might change what equipment we keep and what equipment we sell. We would have to evaluate that. But I'm assuming some of the equipment would be sold, yes.
So is all of that equipment paid for that we own?
Yes.
Okay. Has any other township besides Wheeling done this?
That's a good question. I believe that's the case. I would have to do more research to determine which one. I've heard a lot of talk over the years. I look to Wheeling just because they generally have the same, roughly about the same amount of mileage. They actually contract with Palatine or Northfield? Northfield. They contract with Northfield Township. So they have a model set up, but it's a good question. I've heard a lot of talk from townships over the years. I'd have to do some research to determine which ones have actually followed through on this.
My other question just was that I thought I had heard, and I'm not sure, I'd like to talk to Wheeling about this, was that they had ended up spending more money, at least when this started. But I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, so here's the thing. The one thing I will say is we can find out. We have a lot of good things going for us. One of the big things is that in the past, previous to Art becoming the highway commissioner, we would do quarter mile, half mile, sometimes a little bit more, a little less of a road, whether it be surfacing, completely regrinding and rebuilding. It would be small portions of the district itself would be handled every year. There would be small dollar amounts coming in. There's not a big budget in the highway department, so not going out and overextending, there would just be, you couldn't capitalize on economies of scale. So it was not only more expensive, but you could only do smaller amounts. What Art was able to do is say, okay, let's get the whole district, all the roads essentially where they need to be for an extended period of time. So we're looking at 15 to 20-year roads. That gives us a significant opportunity to build up a capital fund, dealing with maintenance, this ongoing maintenance that happens, but significant rebuilds of roads and resurfacing projects. I mean, we'd be looking at 12, 15 years, if not longer, to be able to build up a capital plan to be able to handle those issues as the township moves forward. So I think we're in a great position. I don't know if Wheeling was in that position, but I know where we stand, and the roads are in great shape, and we plan for them to be in great shape for an extended period of time. Any other questions?
I have a couple. I'm trying not to do all the talking though, but just the only thing I have, a couple concerns, just thinking it through, is I just want to make sure our residents get the same level of service.
Agreed.
And the other thing is, I don't know if now's the best time, just because if you and Paul are going to be handling the oversight of it, we're still finishing the building. We've got to build bike safety. We've got to do the challenge course. So I don't know if this is a good time to make the change, because that's a lot on your plate.
No, it's a good point. Just keep in mind that this won't even be on the ballot till November 3rd. And then, there'd be, then we'd have to transition at that point. So we still have several months. Then we've already started working on just some initial drawings to present to the board, so we can get a proposal from the architect to present to the board. So we're moving forward on the challenge course and bike safety. You'll have some information very soon on that. So I hear you, that there's a lot of things on our plate, but we continue to be able to manage them. And like I said, this wouldn't happen until after November 3rd, and that's with the assumption that it passes. It might not pass. So that all depends, but I think by November, we'd be in a great place. A lot of things on the building are being wrapped up. The signage should be in very soon. A lot of the things that we're wrapping up on the building are, we're ticking them off in rapid succession now, so we're finishing a lot of things up. I think, you have to remember, Erica does the bills, handles the expenses on the highway department now. George is still the clerk of the highway department. I'm the treasurer, the supervisor, but myself now, being the supervisor, is the treasurer of the road district. So we see all these things anyway. So I don't know if it's as big of a change as you might think. I understand the concern. But because the highway department and the township have always worked so well together in Elk Grove Township, I really don't think it'll be a substantial change.
Well, what I would prefer is, I'd rather table it till July and vote, so I could maybe talk to Wheeling, but I don't know how everybody else feels.
When does it have to, I'm sorry, when does it have to be approved by us in order to get on the ballot?
It would have to be approved in our July meeting, because early August, do you remember the date? August 12th, I think it's like early to mid-August. We have the date. We've already contacted the county clerk about it, but I believe it's, Paul's saying August 12th. We can go back and verify that date. Yeah, it would have to be approved in July. Here's my concern about putting off a vote is, if it doesn't, it has to pass this board by 4 votes. On the first reading, right? If it doesn't, or otherwise it carries over, it has to get, if it only gets 3 affirmative votes, let's say, then it's got to carry over. And if we don't take the first vote in July, until July, then we've missed our chance.
What if 4 people are voting instead of 5, then you have to have 3?
No, what I'm saying is our internal rules on the board,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, what if only 4 people decide to vote on it? Then
you would
do
need
have
4 affirmative, so on a first reading, you would need 4 affirmative votes.
Right.
So if in July we don't have 4 affirmative votes, we don't have the time. 3 affirmative votes just kicks it to a second reading. But the second reading, we've lost that chance, because if it rolls into August, then we've missed our,
So then
it doesn't matter.
Could we put it on the ballot in March then?
I believe it has to be on a general election ballot.
Okay.
Well, do you want a motion?
I will entertain a motion, yes.
So moved.
Move to approve.
Yes, I'm sorry. Move to approve the resolution.
All right, trustee Ingraffia moves to approve resolution 2020-05, RD. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by trustee Keenly. Any further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing, I just would say that we are down to a very low number in terms of the miles we have for roads. And I think we need to seriously be looking at something like this, given, in terms of considering what is, from a cost point of view and in terms of an infrastructure point of view, what does make the most sense for us as a township to do. Our focus is shifting more and more to taxpayer services, to social services, to other assistance of the taxpayer. We're shifting more and more away from highway department, unlike a lot of the rural districts are, but we're shifting more and more away from that. And if we can simplify that and reduce the amount of infrastructure we're carrying and costs we're carrying, given the size of the number of roads we have, and given the fact that Elk Grove and Mount Prospect continue to annex property, and that is not going to probably stop, I just think this is a time that really that it seriously needs to be considered.
I appreciate that, George. I want to clarify something. It's very important that when we use words like shift, we're not. All the roads have been and will continue, if this were to pass, all the roads have been, will continue to be maintained, right? It's not that the internal staff within the township is unfamiliar with the road district. Like I said, Erica makes sure all the bills are reviewed and approved properly. Paul reviews the bills. I see the bills. The board sees the bills already, right? So going out and contracting where we need to contract, like I said, having the roads completely resurfaced and rebuilt based on their need, we're in a great position. So I know your point, George, because we've talked about that. I just want to clarify, we're not shifting anything. The funds will be there to continue to maintain the roads. What George, and not to speak for you, George, when we're talking about shifting, it's.
I was talking about shifting the role.
Right, we're different than a rural township that has miles and miles of road. Having limited miles, it's not, if we were to have 30 or 40, 50 miles, it would be inconceivable for the township board to be able to oversee that. But having 6 miles, or roughly 6 miles, it becomes very manageable for the township and the township administration to be able to oversee and manage that. I just wanted to clarify the language, so.
So you're pretty sure our residents are still going to get the same quality and depth of service?
So I will tell you, I've been intimately involved with Art. Art's been driving this process, but he's kept me in the loop. I've been out there, I've visited the roads, I've been in meetings with residents, with engineers, been familiar with the bids. I've been hands-on to the degree that Art has asked me to be or has allowed me to be, especially as the road district treasurer. I have no doubt in my mind. Like I said, for road maintenance issues, we contract out anyway. So any kind of work that we do on the roads, and I understand the concern, and I do. It's a genuine concern. about getting the roads plowed and salted and things like that. And that's a great conversation for the board to have, because we have the equipment. We could keep the equipment and just bring in contractors to come in and even drive our trucks and take care of these things. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we can manage the roads and the road maintenance internally within the town fund and the township administration without any problems.
So could we hire Art as our part-time person because he knows everything that's going on and knows how to do all that?
We could. We could absolutely do that.
It would seem to make the transition easier.
I think it's a great idea. I think it makes sense. I mean, I think that what the benefits of having Art initially, it goes to your point, Trustee Saturn, is we actually have a highway commissioner that lives in an unincorporated area. Not every township has that. I don't know the last time before Art, I don't know the last time a highway commissioner in Elk Grove Township lived in an unincorporated area. That's not a requirement, but that's a benefit. He knows the roads, he knows equipment. That's been a big plus with his knowledge of those two things. I think it would be beneficial, and the board can discuss that. I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good idea. Any other discussion? Okay, there is a motion on the floor to approve resolution 2020-05 RD, proposal to place the question on the November 2020 general election ballot regarding abolishing the Elk Grove Township Road District. Okay, there's no discussion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Saturn,
Aye.
Trustee Narodowski,
Abstained.
Trustee Ingraffia,
Aye.
Trustee Keenly,
Aye.
Supervisor Sweeney.
Aye. Okay, having received 4 affirmative votes, we will notify the clerk that this resolution is passed, and this question will be put on the November 3rd ballot, and the electors will have their say, and we'll address the outcome of this this question accordingly, based on the turnout on that question in November. Okay, moving on to, I sent out a memo today. Hopefully everybody saw this, and we can move forward in any way the board sees fit. There was a mistake, and I'll just pause real quick before I go into this. We were notified on the meeting webinar that someone had raised their hand, presumably to make a comment or ask a question. We saw you, we're not ignoring you. It's our policy to only address questions and comments during public comment. So just know that that's the time that we take questions from the public. That doesn't mean that you can't ask questions after that. We encourage you to call, email, or stop by the township if you have any questions just in general or about any items we've discussed tonight. Okay, I sent out a memo regarding the mistake that was made from the tentative agenda for this meeting to the final meeting agenda. When we added the tentative road district budget, that was cut and then pasted over the item regarding the proposed projects for the food pantry and west and even, bless you, the west and the east that I identified in my memo, the west and east exterior entrances. So what I laid out in my email earlier today is because it was our intention to discuss and possibly take action on these items. We can't take action tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, but if there's no objection, I can at least run through them and we could have a discussion, and then I proposed having a Zoom meeting on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock to discuss these items further and possibly take action. How does the board feel about that?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so I will run through these particular items. They're identified as change orders, just because we still have an open contract with Integral. We had asked them to get pricing for us. So we have change order 43, 44, 45, and 46. You have the cost layouts from Integral in your board packet. Change order 43, in the addition, where the social services is, on the wall, the masonry wall, where the food pantry is, walking into the internal door of the food pantry, there have been some gaps that have been identified that hadn't been identified previously, and some tuck pointing is needed to direct water away from the building, and that water, those gaps would be sealed, and then water would be shed to the west of the building and away from the leaking internally into the food pantry and social service hallway. So that amount is $5,720. Any questions about this particular change order, what's needed, why it's needed, or anything like that? Okay. All right, change order 44. I identified in my memo that I wrote that after consultation with the staff, and I thought that it was necessary. Questions had been asked from the staff about folks that had come in to use our food pantry when we ultimately make it self-select once it's safer to do so. So the question came up about making that food pantry exterior door ADA accessible with the push button access that we had at the previous building. Then the question came up, the proposal is just for the ADA components for the west entrance, but then there was a concern about the east entrance as well. I don't have hard numbers for that, but asked what the numbers would be. They would be similar to what these numbers would be. So you would essentially have a components for the exterior door on the east, and for the interior door coming into the east entrance, you'd have some mechanicals there as well. So you'd probably be looking at an additional $10,000 on the east side entrance for the exterior and internal door mechanicals for the ADA ability. This is not a compliance issue. This is just a service issue. Just wanted to make that clear. Any questions about these? Okay. All right, change order 45. The new storefront at the west entrance. So we have not changed the west entrance at all, the vestibule there. We had to fix the radiator that was there. That was from February of 2019. But other than that, we haven't made any improvements to that west vestibule. That door was hung when we acquired the property so that it opens into your face, right? So you pull it towards you, you kind of have to walk around to go in. We knew that was the case later on in the renovation. I assumed, that it would be a relatively easy change, silly me, based on everything else I experienced. We thought that door the hinge could be swapped over and we can change the way the door would open. And that was not the case. It was more involved than that. And that change would be, that would cost $4,679. because of the condition of the concrete and the way it's sloped, and there was different parts of the concrete leading up to that door that were askew. Integral also provided some numbers for addressing replacing the existing concrete at $2,500. Those, this change order can be, we can dice it up any way we'd like, the board would like. So that's, just wanted to clarify, that $2,500 in concrete replacement. Hang in there, Bob. We're almost there. That $2,500 isn't necessary to do to replace the door, but it would correct any issues with the settling of the existing concrete there. Any questions about this change order? All right. Okay, the change order 46, this was something we hadn't planned on, but we're experiencing it, and I laid this out in my memo. We're just, even with just going in and out, with staff going in and out of that interior door, to go out the food pantry exit where the glass windows are, the glass door is, to take food to clients as they drive up. There's a lot of congestion there. And based on what we've seen over a period of a couple months now, 2.5 months, almost 3, there's just some concern of what it's going to look like when clients come in to shop. And it just, unfortunately, I didn't consider it. I wasn't thinking about it. I thought that we would be able to manage how we'd flow, but now after seeing what I've seen for the last several months and received feedback from staff, my concerns are substantial, right? Not only creating congestion, but more damage to the walls, and you name it, just a big mess. So we asked about what could be done, and essentially the idea was to create a double door where you could have easily folks with carts can come in, they can come out, and then you add in potentially the ADA accessibility where you could easily push a button. You don't have to mess with doors opening and closing. You can manage traffic a lot easier, the situation, while not with the pandemic, while not ideal to life in general, it does provide an opportunity for us to undertake this project while the food pantry still is not open to self-select. So that's just kind of a commentary on that change order, but that's where I will leave it. Any questions on that change order?
So these are 3 doors. 3 doors we're dealing with.
In change order 46?
In overall,
5 doors?
5 doors. Okay.
So it would be, so just to recap, we're talking about changing the swing of the door at the west entrance, the west main entrance, adding ADA accessibility on the food pantry main exterior door, which is that bank of glass windows and the glass door there, adding handicap accessibility on the east entrance at the exterior and the immediate interior door, the single door there. And then the last one is adding a double door to the interior entrance of the food pantry itself.
Yeah, Paul has something.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we're not voting on it tonight, and I'll if the board's in favor, and if Trustee Saturn and Ingraffia, if you have a chance to come over, if we do have a meeting on Wednesday night, to come over and kind of see what we're looking at. We'd be happy to walk you through that, but everybody else that's here after the meeting, I'll show you exactly what, what exactly we're talking about. I'm sure, I mean, you've been around the building long enough, I'm sure you can picture it, but I'm happy to show everybody and walk you through and show you exactly what we're thinking about. Questions about that change order? Just so I can have a sense, so I want to do a couple of things. Is Wednesday evening okay for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm okay.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock,
No problem.
Okay.
okay?
Be a special meeting.
It'll be a special meeting. We'll have it set up so that we'll use the webinar. I will be here, people can come in, but we'll have the same accessibility online and in the town hall, so that folks can participate if they have any questions. But what is, I just would like to get a sense of where the board is at now. I mean, you don't have to share your thoughts, but more so from the perspective that I'd like to be able to, if you have questions or concerns, I'd like to be able to work first thing in the mornings for Paul and I to get you the answers you need to make an informed decision Wednesday. So any board members like to share where they're at on any or all of these change orders?
I think all of them are things we should do.
Okay. What was, oh, he's shaking his head, yes. Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts from the board?
No, I think it's all, part of the new construction, new building, obviously, like the other things, you kind of find out, things we maybe should have done or something. We could all just kind of include this all in the initial construction anyway. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and we've experienced a couple of those things where we've had doors, there was a few doors in the building where we added door closers just to ensure that no doors were left open and just to maximize security so that we made sure people didn't forget to. So we've identified a couple things where there was a place going down from the public restrooms towards the food pantry sorting room. We realized we can't have a push button lock there because Paul and I got locked out. So yeah, just a few things we've had to just correct based on the flow of what we've seen and the, just hardware on doors that we just had to change slightly. So yeah, we're just trying to address some of these things. And yes, these are larger projects. I wish we would have, it's not overwhelming, but it's large enough to where, yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but I think now's the time to get them corrected instead of waiting.
Actually, while we're talking about the building, I was there today to audit the bills and use the bathrooms.
Uh-huh.
In the ladies' washroom, there's no hook on the back of the stall doors for people to put purses or coats.
Yep, that is on our handyman list.
Awesome, thank you.
So we got, handyman started, it was another, call it COVID thing, or don't know. We had a heck of a time finding a good handyman. We got references from Chambers of Commerce, gone, things like that. Either they were too busy or came in and discussed what we were looking for immediately and then ongoing, and they weren't interested, whatever the case might be. But we got another recommendation on a handyman, came in to look at what we were talking about, said he loved the job. When can you come in? He said immediately. He started last Thursday, got things hung in people's offices, other things, working on other things, fixing things. Worked Thursday, Friday, was back in today. Just a very conscientious individual that knows a lot about a lot of things, and he's been doing great work. So, yes, the point's well taken, Sue Ellen. That is on our list. In addition to that, changing tables in both public bathrooms. So all of those things are in play. That we have them. They just have to be installed because you don't want me installing them. So, yeah, but yeah, good point. And other things and I would call on anybody the board, just like I've told staff, if there's things that you're noticing that, hey, this would be beneficial, you know, obviously, you're in a different position being the board because you can approve them. I tell the staff, the only thing I can tell you is no, right? But a lot of the things, the staff hasn't suggested a lot of things, but the few things they have suggested make sense. And so we're trying to add that to the, just try to keep that list updated for the handyman. And then we figure over time, there'll just be a couple, 2-3 times a year, we'll build a list for him where he can come in and fix things or make changes and things like that. But good point. So yeah, just continue to let us know about things you notice in the building.
Okay.
Okay, so we will schedule that. I believe Paul already, just anticipation of tonight, we weren't trying to be presumptuous, but we figured we had to get the notice out this afternoon. We can always cancel a meeting. So we did let the public know that we were calling for a meeting. I figured if we needed to cancel it, we could, but it sounds like everyone's on board for having a meeting Wednesday night. We will get you the login credentials. I will be here if you would like to participate in person. If not, we will get you the login details to participate. And then we can discuss these items further and possibly take action. Okay, if there's nothing else, there's no executive session matters to discuss. And with that, if I can have a motion to adjourn, that'd be great.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Saturn.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Nuredowski. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.